Okay, I've showed you quite a few examples of what we can do on paper, but now I would also like to show you what we can do on textile, because you'll be able to choose if you want to do one textile project during the semester. So I'm going to show you what some of the people in the past have done for the textile. First, usually we make this is for a textile, these two screens right here. This is color number 1 and color number 2. So I don't let you do as many colors usually on the textiles because we have to use such large screens and it takes a long time to prepare them. So we have to limit ourselves on the number of colors a little bit, okay? But here's an example of a scarf. This was done on a big screen. It's a border print. So when we printed it, it was long like this. And we had the large part of the design at each end. We printed on white cotton first to test it, because this is a piece of silk. Usually if you're printing on silk, I recommend you start on a piece of cotton first and practice, and then you do your nice fabric later. So we just took the screen and we turned it the other way on this end, so that we got a nice scarf, shawl-type scarf that you can wear with both ends with the heavy print and the other part with the lighter part of the print. So this can be really nice to do that kind of a design, a border design that can be turned. And I believe it's 3 colors. Okay, this one is just two colors, and it's all linear. And it's a Asian design, sort of a Japanese kind of design with fans. And it's 2 colors. Chiffon works very nice. This is a China silk. Now this one, it has a matching print. It's just one color. Here we have it black on white, but she also printed it on purple and copper color paint. And then she was a fashion student, so this girl, with her one on purple, she made a pair of pants with this and a top with this. But it also makes a lovely scarf set. Just one color, but quite a bit of work in the drawing of this. This is all was hand-drawn. Actually, we hand-drew a couple of them, and we photocopied them, and then we pasted them all together, so she didn't have to draw too many. And then this goes with it. It's like a small mini version of the other one. And this is another type of scarf. And on this one, I asked the student to do just 1/4 of it. And then when we printed it, we turned it. So we didn't have to make such a big screen to do 1/4. We just had to plan it so that it would fit at the joints and turn in a nice way. She printed it several times in other various colors. And this one here is a sort of a stripe, in a way, kind of a stripe. Yeah. With wisteria plants. I guess it goes this way. Which, if you're in Florence in the spring, there's wisteria everywhere, hanging off the building, this old building. It looks really beautiful. So this is, I think, very Florence-inspired wisteria. Glicini in Italian. And this one, the girl came up with the design just by doodling circles, and it really came out nice, the design. So just pen and ink, doodling circles. And another girl, different kind of doodling, but I bet some of you have done this kind of doodle, but look at how beautiful. It looks like twisted rope, and that came out very nice, too. There's lots of people riding bicycles in Florence. So this girl went out and drew a bunch of different types of bicycles that she saw around here to make a wonderful textile with just bicycles. 2 colors. But she paid quite a good attention to whether they had a basket, whether it was tall bike, small bike, women's bike, men's bike, all the little details. And this is printed on a lightweight cotton. This was part of a table set about wine, wine in Florence, and the grapes and the vineyards, and also cafes. She's got cups of whatever she's drinking here. So this is also a corner one, so she could make a small scarf with it as well. And she made, I think, 4 of them, this way 4 times, and then again 4 times on a big piece of fabric to make a tablecloth. So she had like a set of things. This one was fairly complicated to design. So this is the practice, learning how to print it. It also was a rotating one, but this was half of the scarf, and so she had to turn it to make the other half. And there's quite a few colors, but this was an advanced textile major fashion student, so she wanted to make a pretty complicated thing. But a mosaic can be quite a beautiful thing to interpret, but it can be a lot of work too. But it came out really beautiful in the end. This was the practice, trying to print the different colors on top of each other. And this is the colors that she finally chose to do on the good piece of fabric. This one is we have another pigeon one, but this time the pigeons are on the streets of Florence with all the cobblestones. And it's in an overall repeat, and this girl got some white or off-white cotton flannel and printed enough to make a pair of pajamas. It was really cute. She made the pajamas. It came out really cute. And it's all the pigeons on the streets. This one's inspired by India, this size first. And she liked it a lot, so we actually just reduced it photographically to a smaller size, and we made 2 variations. And she made various things with both the larger size and the smaller size. Beautiful rendering. Everything is so precise and perfect on this one. But we just reduced this one down smaller, so she didn't have to redraw it for that one. This one is a little fun one with sort of a Renaissance format, but a little bit of a more fun modern interpretation. We have the Florence symbol here, and little heads of skulls, crocodiles, lions, unicorns, etc. And she printed on several things. She printed enough of this, I think. Then she printed on a little bit heavier fabric, a linen, with a few more colors besides this, and made a vest. She was also in jewelry, and she made the little skull buttons and little lion buttons for the buttons on the vest. This one. A one color one, but she was a fashion student, so she took one of her fashion drawings and did 4 sections of it and some mechanical machine type pieces along with it. This one was part of a complicated project. This student was very good at pen and ink and cross-hatching. I hope you can get the good detail of that right here. And this is the border for a quilt. She made a quilt for a bed. And these are some of the strips for in between. And then she started drawing angels and other characters in Florence for all the patches that were going to be in the middle. I don't have everything here, but this is the outer edge of the quilt and some of the dividing borders and a few of the angels that were put inside. And it was a big project. She was somebody that was here at least a full year. This one's a very nice textile design. Nice, very beautifully planned, a plant. And she planned it out really well how they fit together too. Because you see little spaces here where the leaves have to connect into each other so that when you print them together over and over, you cannot tell where it fits together. And that's the beauty of what you have to solve in a textile design. You have to figure out how to design your unit so that it'll lock together like a jigsaw puzzle and repeat itself in a way that you can't tell where it begins and ends. She was very careful to use some linear effects for shading effects on the leaves. It was a really beautifully designed piece, this one. If you opt to do the textile thing, I will give you some lessons on how to make repeat patterns. That would be in the second project if you want to do a textile, you can do it. This one is her interpretation of a Monet painting. I think it goes, does it go that way? The water lily paintings that Monet did. And she interpreted it with crayon to draw the original drawing with just 4 colors, and she made it look that good with just 4 colors. So another thing you have to think in mind with the silk screen is if the colors overlap each other, they might make another color, and you can get more colors than you actually have screens for if you plan it right. If you overlap, because they're transparent, and they cross over each other like watercolors. So if you plan it right, you can get a lot of extra colors without having to print them. When you're working on your designs, I will help you every step of the way to make sure your design will work. This person was another fashion student I had. And she used the same screen with 2 totally different effects. These are leftover scraps from the clothing that she made. So, but this design with this sort of vase and looks like sort of forks was her screen in 2 colors. And here she used opaque color, metallic opaque. I have that. It's pearl opaque. And printed on top of these stars, which she also made the star background with little stamps with wax and batik. So it's a mixture of screen printing and batik. Where this one, she bought a striped fabric. Sometimes you can get a fabric that has a little bit of a design already in it, not too much, that would complement your own design on top of it. Now, I know everybody wants to make T-shirts, so here's a couple of them. I will let you do T-shirts up to a point, not too many, but you can do a few, okay? Otherwise, it's all T-shirts. This happens to be a really beautiful T-shirt, beautifully designed, with the little rabbit print. And one rabbit she printed on felt, and she appliqued him on and hand embroidered this onto it. Little hand embroidery over here. She made, another thing you can do is make your own labels for all your clothes, your own personal labels. And the back side has another design with the mushrooms. So if you make a T-shirt, I'd like it to be nicely designed. This one's nicely designed. Okay. This T-shirt, we were just trying with paper stencils. This was just with paper stencils without doing emulsion, but a blank screen, and that pieces of paper stick to the back of the screen. So this is with pieces of paper. And the little hands came from a little paper punch. You know the paper punches that they have for children? It has little cats and dogs and whatever. Well, there was a little hand, so we used the hand. And this was at the beginning of the COVID, and it was supposed to represent all the hands of the people that are sick down here and the doctors and nurses coming to help them, coming down from the top. It was a paper stencil, so it was like a one day thing, where this one is an actual screen that you could use over and over again. Perhaps at the very first week, we can do a couple little paper stencils just to get warmed up with how to pull the squeegee and push the ink through, because that takes a little practice too. And we also, I think we have some tote bags that you can print on as well. So I believe we'll give everybody a little tote bag and an apron, I believe, to print on. Canvas apron, canvas tote bag. So that can be fun too. And obviously, I believe this girl was into photography. She's got all the old antique cameras and contemporary, looks like mostly old antique cameras. But you can have fun with them. And tote bags are easy because they're nice and flat. We can print on them fairly easy. It's hard to print on like jeans jackets because there's buttons and snaps and all kinds of things that get in the way. So one suggestion, instead of printing on the jeans jacket, is make patches for your jeans jacket and sew them on instead of trying to print all over the jeans jacket. That's really difficult to print on because it's already sewed and it's got lumpy, bumpy things in the way. So you can make patches and sew the patches on, like on my jacket. You are coming in the spring semester, which means in Italy and most of Europe, Carnevali. And there's parades and costumes in Venice and Viareggio and various other towns around Italy. I'm not sure what will happen exactly with the COVID, but I heard that Viareggio's definitely going to do its parade regardless. So Carnevali. So I made this costume that's sitting right here for Carnevali in Venice. And I used, for inspiration, I used the tops of the capitals for all the parts and leaf kind of things that are happening I was just looking at the capitals, the Corinthian capitals that are here in Florence. And I put some of them here. But at the end of each one, I added the little door knockers that are all over Florence. So each one has, and they look like little monsters, so I thought that was pretty good for Carnevale. So there's little door knocker monsters on the end of each of these little leaves that are hanging on my very strange Carnevale bird. And the mask, I made like a ski hood, and I put it on the mannequin, and I printed up a bunch of these leaves, and then I just went around pinning and moving and until I came up with what I was going to do. So I sort of worked at it as a person that does draping till I got some sort of arrangement that I liked. And then I decided, that's it. Okay, I'm going to sew it. So I sewed it and put it all together. And then I wore this to Carnevale in Venice, and they had like scouts going through the San Marco Square looking for interesting costumes, and they pulled me out the side, and they had a big stage, and they had to go up on the big stage and walk across so everybody in Piazza San Marco could see me. And the conductor said, she's a fantasy bird, that's what I was, a fantasy bird. Okay. I used this costume for one of the small plays that we did at Syracuse, and when they saw that I could do this, then Mr. Erickson at Syracuse wanted me to get more involved with making the costumes. So I did quite a few costumes for the school. We did Where the Wild Things Are. I did all of the characters, all the monsters and things that are in the Wild Things, which I believe you can look at on the Syracuse past events and look it up and see what we made. And then the following year we did Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And both of those performances were at the Teatro Comunale, the main opera house of Florence. So it was a pretty prestigious, big event. It was really nice to do. So if you're also interested in theater costumes, try my class. It really works well with making all these costumes that you have to do for theater. For your semester here, we don't have a lot of time. We have like about 12 weeks to work. So I've decided we're going to do 3 projects. The first one is to learn how to do screen printing. And we got to keep it small and not too many colors, and more or less all of you doing the same thing so I can teach you all of the steps, all of the processes that we have to go through. The second project, we can be more creative and do more individual things because you'll all have the basics down. So I can let you be a little more on your own, a little more creative, but I'm still going to pick and choose what you can do to a good extent. And I was going to introduce the textiles on the second project because there's so much to show you on the first one. I need to leave that for the second. And I'll show you how to do repeat patterns and how to make the designs work. The third project, I wanted to do the photography one where we use photographs and do our Andy Warhol effects and other photographic effects with posterization, 4-color separation, and various things that we can do with photography. And you might, if you want to introduce some things you've done on the computer at that point, you can do it at that point. The Cinema Paradiso, I'm going to just explain that a little bit. This was the first project, and I wanted 4 colors, not very large, just to learn how to do the process. So she's got her 4 colors. We just sectioned off the screen, and we print with a little squeegee one at a time. So you print 1 color, probably this one first, and you put that one on top of it, and then this one, and then this one. Yeah. So we've used 4 different colors. We wash the screen in between. We just use a small squeegee and print 1 color at a time. But then the second one, if it was this textile, then that would be, I just use the whole screen for the one, a 2-color one, the whole screen for one. And the photographs, more or less, we print them this size or the next size. This is A4, A4, and then bigger size is A3. One of those 2 sizes for the photographs. As I said, the first project, I have to keep it more controlled and not too large so I can watch each and every one of you and help you through all of the basic steps because we're going to learn all the basic steps on the first project. We have to learn how to design. We have to learn how to make the transparent stencils. Then we have to learn how to do the darkroom work. We're going to do our own darkroom work. We're not sending the screen out to somebody else to make. We're making the screen in the studio, in the darkroom with the ultraviolet light, special ultraviolet light. So we have to coat our own screens with the liquid photo emulsion, which is a diazo emulsion, which is the most current one that is used by all the schools, also in the U.S. So we put, and it's ours. It comes in different colors, by the way. It comes in a magenta, and that depends on the hardness of the emulsion. I like this blue one, which is usually used for textile design, because it's also one that I can get off the screen and remove it from the screen when we're all done, and we can reuse the screen again. The magenta red one is much more difficult to remove from the screen. I think it was meant to be almost permanent, so it takes a lot more work to get it off. So this blue one is a little bit softer. We are able to dissolve it off and spray it off with a power washer and reuse the screen again. So that's the kind of emulsion we're going to use. We're going to coat the screen. It takes about maybe an hour for the emulsion to dry. In the meantime, you get your drawings they should be almost ready when we coat them. We could coat them the day before. That would be all right, a couple of days before, not too long before. When you know your design is almost ready, that's when we're going to coat the screen. So when the screen is dry after about an hour or so, then we can expose it. We can place your drawings on the screen. We're going to place them, let's see, we place them on this side of the screen, and then we put it in this special machine that exposes them. Then we have to lay it in the screen in that way, this way, and then we close up the machine, and it's a vacuum table, so the rubber sort of foams around this whole thing. This part is glass. Pretend this is glass. And we close the lid, and it's all this rubber, this special rubber, and we turn on the vacuum, and the rubber forms itself and pushes the design, your drawing, and the screen together really, really tight so that we get everything really sharp. And then when the rubber is in place and it's all pulled down, then I rotate it so that the glass side is up. There's a special wheel to turn it. And then I go make all of you leave the dark room, and I press the button to turn on the big ultraviolet light, and it takes about 5 minutes maybe, and it exposes the screen. And the light hardens all of the part where we don't have anything blackened in. The part we painted black on the acetate will be shielded from the light, and so it won't get hardened, and it'll stay soft. When the light goes off, we take it out of the machine. You won't see anything. We take the drawings off. You won't see anything. We take it to the sink, and we're using lukewarm water. We wash it with lukewarm water. And presto, almost instantly, you see your design popping up, and everybody goes, oh, it's already there. They get all excited. But there is a little bit of stuff that we have to wash out. So about 5 minutes, and we wash all of that off, and you have a screen that looks like this. And when it's dry, we print with it. Then the next process, I'm going to have to show you how to set up the printing table, how to register. So there's a lot of steps that we have to cover before you're actually printing your thing. And we maybe make a small set of 4 to start with to try out your colors to see if you like them. I also have to show you how to mix colors, and that's a whole other thing too. So there's a lot of steps that I'll have to show you before we get to our final print. That's why I want to keep it sort of small, controlled, everybody doing the same size, so that we can learn the process, and the next one you can be a little more free and a little more creative. A little bit about our colors. These are the colors that we're going to be using. We also have fluorescent colors. These two are fluorescent colors. In these bottles, the color arrives very, very, very concentrated. When we actually mix the color that we're going to print with, there's another container with like a white paste. And we put the white paste in a bowl, and we just put a couple of drops of this into our bowl, because it doesn't take much color, because this is very super concentrated. These 3 are fluorescent yellow, green, and orange, and I have a fluorescent pink. Then I have about 3 shades of red. I have an orange red, which is the scarlet. I have the red, and then I have the sort of a more violet-y red, magenta. And then we have violet. And we have 3 shades of green, light, medium, and dark. This is one green. Oh, this is the other. Oh, these are both orange. But there's a pink fluorescent too. So there's the 3 primary colors, but in 3 shades of each one. The 4 fluorescent colors and secondary colors. And plus I do have gold and silver and pearl, but that's to be used very sparingly as it costs about 3 times more than these colors do. So only as accents and not on our first piece after you learn how to print with the normal colors. Because these colors are real easy to clean up. They're water-based. When you mix them in with the paste, you can clean up your screen quite easily with a sponge and just water. It cleans it. But then when it dries, it's permanent. You're not working with toxic materials with this. It's water-based. And it works on paper and fiber and fabrics and also leather. It works really good on leather. Works good on some wood, light-colored wood also. And ceramic tiles, we use a different color type of ink. That's different. But these work, they're very versatile. It's highly concentrated, so we just use a tiny, small amount of the color in a bowl of the paste. There's a clear paste that's sort of thick like yogurt, sort of pudding kind of consistency. We put that in a bowl first, and we just put 1 little drop of color in at a time and stir it up until we think we got it. Then we test it on a little scrap of etching paper or fabric to see what we really have. And if we need some more, we put another drop in. But you don't put spoonfuls or pour it in. You just put a little drop at a time and mix it up. Because you don't want to overdo the color, because then it doesn't bond as good with the fabric or the paper, and it clogs the screen easier, and it makes the screen really dirty. So you just use only the amount of color that you need to get what you want, like the things I've shown. There are some other pastes that will make colors. These colors are opaque if we use the main paste. I mean, are transparent, sorry. They're transparent if we use the main paste. And that's what I recommend working with, because that's the easiest to work with while you're learning how to print. It won't dry as fast in your screen and clog your screen, so I recommend you work with the transparent colors. There is an opaque paste if you want to print on black, like that black t-shirt, like this one. Then you need opaque. But opaque is harder to work with, so I don't want anybody working with the opaque until they know how to work with the transparent. You have to prove that you can do it first, because they dry faster in the screen, and we need to learn how to print and do your basic techniques with the transparent colors. Okay, I'm just going to explain a little bit basically how we print without actually printing. But you have your screen, it's clamped in a printing press. You've set registration marks, and you have your paper down underneath. The squeegee, I have different sizes. This is a small size, and there's a little bit bigger, and there's another one in between, and there's a really big one that does the really big screens. So we have a number of different shapes of squeegees. Now here, because we put 4 colors in the same screen, we're going to use a small squeegee and print 1 section at a time. So when you're printing, you put a little bit of your ink that you've mixed across here. It's sort of thick. It's not runny or liquidy. It's like sort of yogurt pudding consistency. So it doesn't run all over the place. You also make sure you have an apron on before you start, so you don't get all your clothes messed up. The angle of the squeegee is really important. You don't hold it straight up, and you don't hold it real low. You hold it just a little bit tipped, like this. And then you pull it across, and you keep that same pressure all the way past the image. And what you should do when you do that, when you're pulling it across, is sort of step back a little bit, like a dance. You're going back and forth like a dance. And maybe about 3 pulls will be sufficient to print your image. If your image prints here and doesn't print here, your angle was wrong. These things I'm going to show you again when we're actually printing. I'll watch each one of you and make sure you got that angle right, and that movement, that stepping back sort of little dance that you have to do when you're printing. When you get that rhythm down, you can print pretty fast. When we're done, we scrape out all the excess paint with a rubber spatula. We put it back in our little container of colors. Each of you will have little containers and a locker to where you keep all your colors that you can keep using till the end of your project. So then we take it to the big laundry sink and we wash it with just sponge and water on both sides. And the ink comes off very easily unless it dries. So you can't work too slow. But this transparent ink keeps pretty well without drying. So you got time. Then when it's dry, we put it in a dryer, or if you're done for the day, we just put it in the racks where all the screens are kept. So our next lessons will be in the studio, and when you're ready to print, of course, we will go through all of the steps again. This was just to give you an idea of the process. When we're actually doing the process in the studio, I will help you every step of the way. We will repeat all of the instructions again. Let me tell you now about my inspiration for our class. I'm going to show you a lot of things that the students in the past did to help you get an idea what you're capable of doing in this class, and might give you some ideas of what you can do. I want to introduce you to get you inspired a little bit about what kind of things you could do for your first project. Since you're coming to Florence, I would like you to get inspiration from Florence. I know you aren't here yet, but you could look up online a lot of things about the history of Florence and maybe a particular artist or building that you're interested in. Look it up online, try to get all kinds of ideas from that. When you get here, we're going to go on a little walk together as a class, and I'm going to point out lots of interesting little details that may not be online perhaps, that in the architecture, little gargoyles, little details around windows and doors. We're going to go down to the Church of Orta San Michele, which is right in the center between the Duomo and the Piazza Signoria. And on that church, they have all the guilds of Florence. You might look that up, too, because I want to talk about that, all the symbols that you see, and explain what some of those symbols are. They're all over the buildings, and they tell you which guild put the money up for building what building. So that will be a very important part of the history, too. I want to give you a little bit of Florence's history as well, at least the details of the artigiani and all the guilds, because that's what I'm interested in. So, like, if you got any books at home, look up some things about the artist or about the city or Tuscany, and see if you can get some information and some history before you even get here. Because we're going to do our first project about Florence. Just a detail. And it'll be a small print. And when we draw these designs up, you can get a sketchbook now and start filling it with little sketches and little ideas that you might have even before you get here. And we're going to take some of those ideas plus what you get when you first get here. You'll get all inspired and excited, and we'll take one of those details. The detail might even come from your neighborhood or your apartment or your door. We'll see. But anyway, start learning about Florence and its history, and then we'll continue with some of that when we're in class and try to use Florence to start us out on our inspiration. And then the second one will probably include some of the other parts of Italy as well as Florence. When we finally have a design, I want to explain what we'll be doing in class. When we finally have a design that we like, a sketch, we have to make it draw it to the original size that we want to print it. And this I would just do in pencil, so you can erase things and that. When you have that design figured out, then you have to think about your colors, and you probably just have some ordinary color pencils or whatever you have at home, and you can try playing with colors. We're only going to use 4 colors. And one of the 4 colors is your outline, so don't forget, if people make things and the outline, they aren't counting that as a color, but it's the color, we have to print it. So that's one of your 4 colors. You have, let's say, dark outlines, not necessarily black, and 3 fill-in colors. And those 3 fill-in colors can also overlap each other to create an extra color without having to print it. So we got to think about that when we're planning. The things when we prepare our stencils to put on the screens, we have to prepare them on something transparent so that, because we're photographing this image onto the screen. So we have to either prepare them on tracing paper, not the thin type that you use a lot in America, this heavier vellum type tracing paper. I'm sure you can get it at an art store. If not, we'll have a box full of it here in the studio. And we can draw our designs on that. And if you can also get acetate, they can be drawn on acetate too. The things you can draw on the acetate or the tracing paper with, we have to draw with something that will be dark enough to stop the light, because this is a photography process, and we'll need to stop the light from passing through certain areas. So let's say you're going to draw all of your big areas, your black areas. We need to fill that in with a solid black. Now, I will give each, in your kit when you get here, you will get 3 of these markers, Posca markers. I don't know if you have them in the United States. I think they do. But you'll get a set of 3, a big one, a middle-sized one, and a real fine one that you can draw on your tracing paper or your acetate with this. And it's heavy enough to stop the light. Not all markers are the same. Some are really watery and really transparent. And if you draw your whole thing out with them, the light's going to pass right through and it's not going to work. So you have to have the really opaque, and it says opaque marker on here. I'm sure there must be the equivalent in the United States. If you don't have, you might have Posca. You might want to, if you can photograph that. Okay. Other things you can use, plain black India ink. You can draw with that. And you can get an old-fashioned quill pen and a nib, which are really cheap, and you can draw with that. And if you're good with pen and ink, this is wonderful. You have to learn how much pressure to put on. If you want, you can also get an architect pen. I'll have these pen and ink and things like that in the studio and this kind of thing. But if you want to get a rapidograph pen, you have to get your own. Those work fine too, of course, for drawing out designs. And if you buy a rapidograph pen or you bring one of your rapidograph pens with you, don't bring a really tiny nib. We need the lines to be a little bit stronger because the light that photographs the screen is pretty strong, and it might not let those little tiny, tiny lines come through. So don't go too small on the number. Let's see what else we have here. Oh, I have some acrylic paint, opaque paint, for really big areas that we need to paint out. That we'll probably have to paint on acetate. So each one of your colors in your design will have a sheet. If it's a 4-color design, you have 4 separate sheets. One with your main outline, I guess, and the other 3 with all your fill-in colors that we will prepare with one of these mediums. When you're here, I'll tell you what's best for which parts of your design. I'll look at your design and we'll figure out together what you should. Oh, another thing you could use that I forgot are lithograph crayons. Lithograph crayons work really, really well and give you a nice crayon-like texture. I'm just going to go through a couple of these acetates so you can see how people, these are not their first projects, but you can see how people analyze things and broke it down. These were mostly textile patterns, but we still draw them up the same, whether they're textiles or they're drawing or photographs. We still break them down the same way. So this person got some inspiration from a circular pattern. And there's lots of circular patterns in Florence in the architecture, the stained glass windows, decorations on doors and windows. And there's lots of circular patterns. So if you like that, it also works well if you're a textile person to make a scarf design with it, or a pillow design with a circular pattern. So these are, a person was working with this circle that they found. As an image, it was just 1/4, and of course if we put it together you get a full circle or half a circle like a fan. So these are some of her these are some of the actual separations that went on the screen. If you notice, there's also a red color here, rosso coprente, red blockout. It's gotten a little bit hard to get a hold of, but I've played around with the acrylic black. Seems to work fine as a substitute. There were also some red special marker pens that are hard to get too, but I found the right pens in black that are okay. So this is what she actually put on the screen right here. This, and this one that she put on the screen. You'll be making, especially your first final ones before we make the screen, in front of me so that I can check and make sure everything is dark, opaque enough, and it's drawn right. so that it works on our screen, nice and clear like you see these here. Here's another one to show you, this one. With the textile people, I will have to show you how to make a repeat. And there's a pretty simple way with pieces of ordinary paper. I use graph paper normally, and we make we have 4 little pieces that we keep moving around, and it brings all the ends together into the middle. And then you draw your design, and then when you make more repeats of it, with photocopies, you can put all of these repeats together, and they all fit. Then we have to do a little bit of work on the outer edges, how they're going to fit when you roll it around and bring it together so that they actually fit into each other. This is something I will have to have a whole lesson with in class. But just to give you an idea, some of the things we're going to do. So this was her inspiration, and she worked it out. It's kind of an African print. She worked it out in a repeat. This was the main color. And I didn't find the other acetates, but after she got all her colors, before we printed it on the fabric, we printed the whole thing on a piece of acetate so that you can use that as a registration guide. This is a guide to help you register your print when you're printing your fabric. So you'll have to make this first. Here's another textile, and you can see her little unit of giraffes. You can see each of her little pieces of tracing paper, how it fits together and makes her repeat. And this repeat is called a half drop. You see there's part of it higher over here, part of it lower here. I will go over all of these different units, block, half drop, or brick, repeat. I'll go over all of that in class. You can probably look some of that up online too. This one. I like this textile was really quite nice. It was inspired from the Duomo. Can you see the little domes and the windows? How she used them into a design. It was 2 colors. So the 2 sheets of acetate are right here. It was just a 2-color one. These are the 2 separations. On the first one, we're going to mainly draw, but when we're drawing, we tend to just think in flat, solid shapes or just lines. There's also texture. If you want to get texture, well, one of the ways is with the lithograph crayon, which I don't happen to have here right now, that you can make rubbings, or you can just draw with it like a Crayola like you did when you were a child. Or another way you can get a lot of textures is photocopying. Like this person photocopied burlap in rough fabric and used those photocopy pieces and cut them up into an interesting pattern for a textile. Look, see the beautiful textures you can get from photocopies. We have a photocopy machine in the studio, so we can use it to help us make these things. Actually, this person made a large quilt. This is just one of the patches. It's quite nice. This girl was from Japan, the island. What's the southernmost island of Japan? Anyway, she was from Japan, and she made a beautiful design inspired from her native country, a Japanese motif. This is her inspiration, her little 4-piece of paper repeat. Then she made a lot of photocopies of those, and then we put this together. And we checked all the sides to make sure the top and bottom and the 2 sides fit together. And these are all of her separations. Let me just... this is the main one, which we usually draw that one first, and then we can leave that one as our guide to do the fill-in colors, the other colors. These are 1, 2, 3, 4 colors. This was 4 colors, this one. So each one. And this is just a paper copy, but she made a beautiful fabric of this print. And it looks like she maybe used some metallic paint. I have some metallic paints here, but we have to be careful with them because they're not so easy to print because they dry in the screen very easily. So I have to see if you're capable of using them first. The other paint, the transparent colors, are much easier to print with. This was inspired from Gustav Klimt. And there was I believe at the time this person made this design, there was a very big Klimt show at the Palazzo Strozzi. And so a lot of my people that semester made things with Gustav Klimt. So this is her paper idea. taking inspiration. This is one of the, this one is really complicated. One of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This person definitely was one of my textile fashion majors and was studying to be a textile or fashion designer. So she made a pretty complicated project. And this kind of a design works really well for fabrics to make clothes. I think I got through everything that was on the table. Okay, I want you to just get a sketchbook before you come to Florence. Start drawing sketches. Bring find things online. Bring imagery with you that you like, and we'll have a little walk around the first week to get inspiration for some things about Florence, some things that you might not be able to find online, little details in the architecture, things in the pavement, tabernacles, wine doors. Do you know about the wine doors? They're pretty interesting too. They used to sell wine through these little doors. That you might be able to find online, actually. Inspiration, everybody. Look for inspiration and learn a little bit about Florence before you get here. Even though this is a textile or printmaking class, I still want to give you a little bit of information about Florence and its history. I'm showing you some more separations that we have to make for doing our screen prints so that you start to understand a little bit better what they are and how they should look. I was talking about texture. I found these, and these have another texture that was done with a big paintbrush for painting your house or your furniture. And that it came out very good on the silk screen, and all these textures that you can see from the brush stroke showed up really clear, and she was able to play with it a lot, actually. She created designs. Many of the designs are really I want you to do a really fixed one first. Many of the designs are very fixed, and they have to go exactly in a certain way. But some things, sometimes you take a shape. Like this is the same person. And you make some screens with a bunch of shapes. And then when you're printing, you're composing like a painter. You're composing the different parts and elements. And each print can be a monoprint of its own. And various interesting things can happen. So this person made a number of images with textures and shapes. And when she printed, she created the design, composed it, like was her canvas. The big piece of paper or the fabric, she did both, was her canvas. And she took all of her little shapes and pieces and spatters and whatever and created the design when she printed instead of having a fixed design. But that's what we're going to do first, is a very fixed design. But there's a lot of liberties with screen printing. You can go a lot of different directions. So this is a little bit different. But I wanted to show the nice texture that you can get, because don't forget about texture. Texture is nice to have. Okay, I'm going to set this aside. Photography. I've got a bunch of photography examples here. This is an example of posterizing. On your computer, you can do the CYMK, the color separation, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. It has a little program, I believe, that you can use to automatically separate it. Posterizing is basically just different exposure times. Now, this I did on lithograph film a long time ago when it was, I have some. It was much easier to find with the regular and larger in the darkroom and special high contrast developer. And what I did was I tried to make a normal contrast, normal exposure. Then I made one that was a little bit too dark and another one that's a little bit too light. And you have these three, and that's called posterizing. You can make more separations if you want. Generally, 3 is enough to get the effect that you want. And it has sort of this Andy Warhol kind of quality look to it. So the lion is he's in Piazza Signoria, this little lion. Oh, the lion, by the way, is a mascot of Florence. Marzocco, okay? And another one of these. We can do these separations probably now with your computer and a printer. But at the time, did it in the dark room within the larger, the old way, before we had all of that available with the computer. Here's another one that was a portrait. Let's see. Let's see if I can show you. Can you see it if I hold it up, or is it too? You have to put the paper underneath it, I think. Here we go. Okay, that's the normal exposure. And it's her self-portrait holding a little Polaroid photograph in front of her face, looks like. And then we did one that was a little less exposure, lighter. And then we did another one that was very dark. And when these get exposed on the screen, each one opens up differently on the screen. So you get more of the screen opens up with this really dark one. So you print a light color with that, not a dark color. And then you print your lightest one is your darkest color, like the opposite. And then this is your middle tone color, which I usually print that first, and then I put the light one and the dark one on top of it with transparent colors for posterizing. The CYMK, I do cyan first usually, then I print magenta, then I print yellow, and then I put the black on top. This one was done with the computer. It's actually turned. It was the design was a photograph of a little corner in a ceiling. I don't know if you can see the angel at the top. And the student did a mirror image on the computer to get, and then it's an automatic repeat. If it's a mirror image, it fits together. Okay. So then she made with her computer one for the cyan, one for the. Let me see if I can figure out which is which. This one is definitely the black. The one with the least on it is always the black one. And the darkest one is usually, probably this is the yellow one. And then one of these was the magenta and one of these was the cyan. Usually the two sort of middle ones. This one had a lot of magenta, so I think this is the magenta and this is the cyan. That's the yellow and that's the black. So the black, the cyan, the yellow and the magenta. Okay. But that's not the order I printed. I usually print the magenta, the cyan first, because then I can see what I'm doing to fit the other colors into it. So I usually print the cyan first. Most people think print the yellow first, but if you print the yellow first, it's really hard to register. So it's better to do one that you can see clearly, and that's usually the cyan or the magenta one. So I do the cyan, then I do the magenta, then I do the yellow, and then I do the black on top of that. But that one was done on the computer. Okay. And this is a photograph that one of the villas that has palm trees. And these are her separations. I don't remember exactly which is which on here, but probably that has something to do with the green or the blue, because it has a lot of black there. If you don't know, you have to really definitely mark what color is which. But if you don't know, I can probably figure it out because I know just about which areas turn black with the filters of the. So I can usually figure out this is either probably the cyan or the yellow, that one. This one was her staircase. It's a little harder to see it. So it was a photograph she took in the hallway of her apartment here, the staircase. It looks very dark on these, but in the end, the print came, because it was a dark hallway. In the end, the print, I'm missing one of them. The print came out quite nice, actually. And it showed her entryway into her apartment here in Florence very well. What do I got here? Oh, this one, now you can also do a lot of things with combining some drawing and photograph together. So this is her self-portrait on the film, and there's another one under there that she's drawing. But she's put a piece of tracing paper, and she loves stippling, really loves stippling, and did stippling on top, and that was going to be part of the photograph along. So it wasn't just so graphic. There was a little bit of this human touch to it. Here's another one that was done on the computer. It's a textile design. It's sort of hard to see. I believe the image is right here, one of these units. And it's a row of birds. Looks like parrots. anyway, she mirror imaged it on the computer and flipped it that way and mirror imaged it. And it, with mirror imaging, you definitely get a repeat that works, and it was printed on a fabric. This one is inspired. There's a little fresco in one of the museums of Florence when it was just growing. And this was inspired from that fresco, I'm sure. I think it's in the Bigalo. So this is the main image. Florence at that time didn't have the cathedral yet in this old fresco that I'm thinking about. But the baptistry was built because the baptistry is at least 1,000 years old. So the baptistry is the main thing that's in that fresco because the cathedral wasn't made yet. I think it showed a little piece of the cathedral. They were just starting to build it. And then a little bit of the Palazzo Vecchio was also in that same fresco. So this was inspired from that. And these are her little, that's her main one. She liked the pen and ink. And these are all her little separations for all the different colors that were in that. Quite loose and free, nicely done, yeah. If you like drawing and pen and ink, this works really good for you. Yeah. And crayon texture is also good to have. Lithograph crayons work really well. And lithograph pencils also. This one here is for a textile. And she's taken her Italian. It says gatto, which means cat. And she was missing her little kitty back home. So she decided to do a scarf about her cat back home. And this is the cat and her milk and her yarn. And the design, when she printed it, this is the background color. It was rotated. You print here, you print there, print here, and you print here. And then you put this color on top of it, and then you have quite a large scarf with the cat repeated 4 times on it. Came out nice. I've had other people do their pets that they were missing back home. So this was her cat. Somebody did their dogs. Okay. This one here, I had told everybody get some design from Florence. And this was a textile student. So she noticed there was this shell shape in a lot of the architectural details around the city, especially above doors a lot, the half shell. And in the painting by Botticelli. But I believe she just got this off of one of the ones that's above doors, a lot of doors. And we put it into a repeat. And since it's a shell, something about the sea, this is supposed to be about water, the second color. And then that fits into here, like that. So it's a simple textile, 2-color, her first one, 2-color textile. And she was a fashion student. And I remember her teacher back home said, you have to make a piece of fabric to bring home and make a dress out of when you get home. So she had to print a lot of it. This was another girl from that same group. And she saw all these little putti, little angels that are decorating everything all over this. There's lots of them everywhere in the city, these little baby angels, putti. And so she made a repeat. This is called a half drop. And it drops halfway. So it's a vertical repeat. And we worked it out on graph paper and with photocopies and pasting all our little photocopies together until it works as a unit that repeats itself. And then we just did the 2 colors. These were summer students. They didn't have much time. So we did the 2 colors, and these are her 2 colors, her linear part and her solid part of her color. And she also had to make 3 yards so that she could make a dress with it when she got home for her fashion class. Sometimes the teachers back home have some anticipation what they want the students to bring back. So this was how we were accommodating that one. I think this may have been from the same group. This one's quite nice. That she's taken the symbol of Florence and turned it around and turned it into stripes and made quite an interesting design out of the symbol of Florence. And it's also in a half drop repeat. And these are the 2 separations. Yeah, it was the same group of fashion students. This was another fashion student. And she took daisies, daisy-like flowers, and this is her paper repeat. And this one is So that's the main. We have to make this first, and then we can trace all of the parts from that. So this is the main part that you see there on the paper. And then this was for the leaves. And this was for the color inside. This was also a summer student, fashion summer student. Yeah. And that's the other cover. This came out very nice, and it was quite easy to print, too. She printed it, was able to print a really large piece quite quickly. So, we will be seeing you in the studio, and we'll have lots of fun.